Trying to figure out how to grow your back can be a nightmare. Why? Because you have all these different freaking muscle groups to consider. You have the lats, you have the lower traps, the middle traps, the upper traps, the rhomboids, the rear delts, the teres major, the backside of the rotator cuff. You have all these different groups to consider. And yet, I'm going to boil all those groups down into just 3 exercises that you can do throughout the week. So the first part of this video is going to be me showing you what are the 3 categories of those exercises that you can do, plug and play. Number 1, and then number 2, how do you organize this in your actual programming? I'm gonna make it super simple, and by the end of this video, you're gonna be like, wow, I really understand back training now. Okay, cool. So we have 3 categories of motions, and we're gonna dive into the first right now. So the first category of motion is the vertical pull down category. Okay, this should come as no surprise to you, but the vertical pull down category can be any exercise where your arm is being pulled up to the sky, whether it's more narrow or slightly more wide, where you are pulling downward. Okay, a very important thing to consider with this motion is that regardless of whether your arm is here or whether your arm is here, okay, you're going to be targeting your lats primarily, all of your lats, okay? Any pull down type of motion, whether it's a pull down or a pull up, whether it's single arm or double arm, whether it's machine or cable, all those different kinds of exercises are going to target your lats plenty, just fine. The one thing that you really need to make sure that you do when you are doing these types of motions is you need to allow your shoulder blade to kind of shrug up a little bit toward the ceiling, and you need to make sure that the motion actually stays vertical. Why? Well, because a lot of people, instead of pulling down like this or pulling down like this, keeping their ribs down, what they do is they start to pull and they arch their back because it feels a lot more sensation-y because they're able to contract all of their erectors and stuff. But arching your back and pulling super, super wide as you do it especially is gonna remove all the tension from the lats because it's gonna remove the vertical component, okay? So category number 1, exercise number 1 is vertical component. You are, having your arms pulled up by something, it doesn't matter what it is, and you are pulling down against it. I personally love a single arm cable pull down to do this. I love a single arm machine pull down to do this. I love a 2-arm narrow V-bar pull down to do this. Any which way that you can pull vertically, downward, that's category number 1, and that's gonna be primarily for the lats. Category number 2 is going to be, instead of up to down, it's going to be somewhere in the middle to somewhere in the middle, right? So when I turn Frank this way, you see Frank's arm is kind of over here, right? The arm is not quite here and not quite all the way out here, but it's gonna be kind of a blend of the two right here. This category of I have something that is pulling my shoulder blade and my arm forward against which I am then pulling backward. I'm squeezing my shoulder blades backward rather than downward. Okay, here is a cat. Hello, cat. Anytime you're pulling backward rather than downward, you're gonna shift the focus more from the lower portions of the back, i.e. the lats, to then upward on the back, okay? So the first category, going high to low, right, is gonna target the stuff that is most low. And then as the angle goes down, the recruitment on the back goes up, okay? Pretty cool, pretty simple as a heuristic, right? So now when the shoulder blade is being pulled forward and I'm rowing backward like this, that's gonna target all of the mid-back muscles, the middle traps, the rhomboids, the lower traps, as well as the rear delt and the backside of the rotator cuff. So when we consider pulling like this, all we're really doing is we're saying, yeah, I still have a little bit of lats, okay, in this position, middle to middle, but I'm starting to shift the recruitment this way. And so this kind of exercise is going to be somewhat of a hybrid of a pull down and the next motion that we're going to go into detail in. And my favorite way to do this exercise, personally, is on a really good chest supported row machine. Really, really hard to beat a solid chest supported row machine, whether it's more of a T-bar row or something like the Prime horizontal row. Anything that kind of just allows you to place your chest up against something is going to be really good because it's going to prevent you from having to use all of your erectors, these big muscles on the backside of your spine, from stabilizing the motion, holding you together. And it's also going to be great from a technical perspective. It's just going to be easier for you to just, freaking close your eyes and just pull as hard as you can, right? That's what it's all about. So category 1, high to low. Category 2, middle to middle. Category number 1 is primarily for the lats, the big bulk on the lower part of the back. And then category number 2 is gonna be shifting things up, still some lats, but also now we're getting a lot more mid-back involved, especially if you really concentrate not just on pulling with the arms, but really squeezing all the way back and pulling and squeezing with your shoulder blades, okay? But still a hybrid. So what is category 3? Well, category 3 is the opposite of the pull down. It's more like, well, we can't call this a pull up, okay? But it's basically a low to high situation. So you see this is kind of like a spectrum of pulling, right? So we go from this to this to this, and now we're starting here, this to this, okay? And when we start low and go high, well now all of a sudden, instead of emphasizing shoulder blades down as we pull, we're emphasizing shoulder blades back and up as we pull. And as we emphasize shoulder blades back and up, we're still gonna have proportionately a lot of this stuff on the back side of the shoulder. So rear delt is gonna be on fire with this kind of motion, but we're gonna have proportionally more recruitment start to shift further upward. So category 1 was stuff down here. Category 2 started to shift things up here. And then category 3 is even higher because why? The shoulder blades are not just going backward, but they're also kind of shrugging upward almost behind the ears. And this will be great for more so the middle traps and the upper traps as compared to these other muscles like the rhomboids and the lower traps, okay? So overall you have these 3 categories. You have the high to low, you have the middle to middle, and you have the low to high. And with just those 3 motions alone, that's it, you've covered your entire back, okay? And you could even make the argument that you could cover the entire back with just 2 motions if you're someone who maybe only train a couple times a week and you don't have time for more than that, where you could do something that's kind of like high to low and then something that's not quite this steep and not quite this horizontal, but something in between, right? You're just getting a full picture of the more that I do this kind of a thing, the lower the recruitment, and the more that I do this kind of a thing, the higher the recruitment. And so anything just shifting in between those zones, now okay, well if I go middle to middle, that's more of the middle stuff. If I go high to low, that's more of the low stuff. If I go low to high, that's more of the high stuff, right? So now you have an ability to sort of toggle the exercise and make the exercise more specific to whichever part of the back, high or low, you want, just through this simple model of where is my arm moving. So overall, now into programming related stuff. The first thing to keep in mind is that the amount of volume that you perform will need to be specific to you, okay? I'm not going to make blanket recommendations about do this volume. It's gonna depend on so many things that we don't have time to get into in this video. So I'm just gonna start by saying this. It is sensible to me to train your back twice a week if your back is a priority. That would be my starting point recommendation. Now, within that, if all of your back is like a priority, I would just do 1 of each kind of motion on either one of those days. You could do 1 or 2 sets for each motion. Given you're doing it twice a week, if you only do 1 set, 3 exercises per day, you have 6 total sets as a starting point, which is not by any means super low. It's also not super high. It's a decent starting point if you've never done a back specialization program before. To some of you, that might seem like very low volume. To others, that might seem perfectly fine, okay? It really depends on your setup, your execution, and your effort, okay? Effort is a really big thing. The more effort that you put into each individual set that we're talking about here, the less volume you need to do, okay? The more you like to not train to failure, which is totally fine, the more volume you need to do, okay? But just pick 1 of each motion on either one of the days, boom, plug and play. So you have a vertical pull, number 1, category 1, you have a horizontal pull, category 2, and then you have a low to high pull, category number 3. And that's it, that's the layout. Now, if you're only training back once a week, I would just keep that format, right? 1, 2, 3, and just do more sets for each of those exercises on any given day. You could also organize it differently. So imagine that, you're doing 2 days a week still. Maybe one of the days you really just want to make it a lat focus, right? So all of your stuff is like pull down here, maybe pull down at a slightly lower angle like this, pull down at a slightly higher angle like this, different angles, maybe wide grip pull down in tandem with narrow grip pull down, in tandem with single arm pull down, whatever it happens to be. You make one day your lat focus, which is your downward motion focus. You put that on one day, and then on the other day you make more of the mid and the upper back focus. So it's all, your wider rowing, your low to high stuff, your shrugs, those types of things, they all fall underneath of that second category. So you could do it that way, where you separate by lats one day and upper back another day. And if you are hyper specific about how you're really focusing on those different categories, then there's very little overlap in terms of the fatigue that you might feel from one day to the next, at least in my experience. And then imagine you're doing 3 days a week back training. Imagine you like to do that. Cool, fine, no problem. Just put one kind of motion on either day, right? So my point is just that there's a million different ways to chalk this up. There's no one single right way. As long as you know, okay, these are the 3 categories, I can just sprinkle in one of each of these categories or multiple depending on your priority of each of these categories throughout the course of the week. And as long as I'm checking those boxes at some point, you will see back growth and you will see results as long as your effort is high enough and your volume is sufficient for where you're currently at. So overall, I hope this model helps. If you have any questions, drop them below and I'll see you all in the next one.